Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us. This session will start very soon, and the webinar will actually be recorded, and the video will be shared with you via email and posted on the DigitalOcean YouTube channel. So watch out for that as well. And it will also be available on the DigitalOcean community at do.co/tech talks. And we may post the links later on as well. So Ray, let's get started.
Sounds good. So again, my name is Raymond, and today we're gonna talk about open source deep learning with OpenVINO. So Zoe, welcome. Good morning. So let's start by talk about a little bit of background. So what maybe my first question to everyone or to you is, do you remember the first time you write your first line of code? What was it like? When was it, Zoe?
Yeah, so for me, I was, I think about 10. It was very much around the days of Tumblr. And I was really into Tumblr and I wanted to create my own designs and templates. And so I got into HTML and CSS and kind of played around with Tumblr. And at the time, I was also really into design. So it was kind of a bit of learning as I go, learning everything through searching on Google, websites, tutorials, documentation, everything online basically. So I started with HTML and websites and
Wow.
very
Oh,
early
me
on.
too.
Yeah.
So I did the same, but I think I'm a little bit older. I started with floppy drive, floppy disk at one
Oh
point. So
my.
I share my project or submit my project. I basically have a physical drive with my HTML page in it, and I give it to the person. It's like, can you take a look at it? And that's basically what we did, right? I did my marketing slides at one point.
Yeah.
It was fun. Like I think always the first thing that you tried, and it was like, wow, it was open source in some way. If you think
Yeah.
about it,
Yeah.
I was
Yes.
doing this with
Yeah.
my friends. You have a partner? Do you? Do you have a partner at that time working on your code?
It was probably just online friends at the time.
Yeah.
In
So,
my school, it was very rare to find someone else
uh-huh,
who knew, so it's very much everything online.
uh-huh. So why I think this is cool because I'm very into open source. I think I've talked about my background, why I'm here. I did my computer science and PhD in Toronto, and when I was doing my PhD, everything I used was open source. I took it so serious. A couple years ago, I wrote this book, OpenGL Data Visualization Cookbook, for people to learn how to code with the source code attached. I think this is really cool because in many ways, I think this kind of collaborative learning is very great for many people. And that's one thing I really believe and trust. And I think for Zoe, you also did a lot of work in the past year, right?
Yeah, I did. My undergraduate, I actually studied applied physics, and I was a data science researcher at the time, and I relied heavily on open source as well. I was working at a particle accelerator lab doing data science models, modeling for electron beam dynamics, optimizing the particle accelerator, and all of that. And at the time, everything was basically hosted in Switzerland. And
Mhm,
everything was just by professionals, and most
mhm.
everything was coded in Fortran. And it
Wow,
was still
fortune.
very it was still very old school, but relied heavily on anything I can find on
Cool.
archive research papers and open
Cool.
source code.
So, well, that's a long introduction. The reason we put into this is now imagine today you are building your first AI apps. Let's say something related to food, something you want to help people on cooking, right? You most likely will hit this problem where, like, well, first you gotta look into where the pre-trained models are, especially in the open AI community right now. You're gonna see so many different tools, so many things you can try and use to build an app. Let's say today you have an idea of building this, literally, a voice-based interactive recipe apps for cooking. So the idea is, instead of touching your phone when you're cooking, you ask the app a question to say like, how much garlic do I need when I'm cooking? And then this will respond to you. And I think this is very important to a lot of us because I think so we can talk about this quickly. Like when we think about AI computations, there's a lot of things we have to consider. It's not a simple path for most people. And then to navigate through this, well, again, Zoe is actually a product manager in Intel, and then let her talk about a little bit what the product will look like when you're trying to build.
Yeah, so Ray, typically we look at three things. First is what is my workload? Do I want to use a combination of different computer vision tasks like image classification, etc.? Next is we want to think about what is the requirement? Do we want scalability or do we want the highest throughput? And then lastly, you think about the demand and what platforms are you using at your end deployment and what kind of scalability and utilization are you looking to have for each of those platforms? So that's pretty much it. Workloads, requirements, and demand.
Mm-hmm. So I think that actually also come into the play of a lot of people ask, like, when we start with building your first AI applications, where do we start? I start to see a lot of misunderstanding that you have to build everything from scratch. That was I would say back to the old days. Yes, you do. You have to get your data. You have to train. But with training, a lot of time, it's very time consuming, first of all. Oftentimes you see classical problem like image classification. People would take a lot of data, pre-labeled, and you go through the neural network, doing the forward and backward propagations to teach the network, like this is a bicycle, this is a strawberry, a banana, human. And then you get this kind of pre-trained model. And this model is where usually you deploy to the customer. And that's what the topic we often call the inference. Why this is important is, I think in this community right now, 90% of the time, I would say 90% of the time, you will be thinking about building application that's deployable to the client or your customers. And then you most likely working on this problem called inference, because you want to basically ask a question like, is it a bicycle or not? You want to track it or not? And then the machine will basically tell you, okay, there's a probability of 90% that this is a bicycle. Similarly, we can do it for sound. And this is, for example, what is it, Zoe?
Canon ND.
She knew it. All right. But with a computer,
I trained
we
my
can,
network. I trained my
yeah,
model well.
right. She trained it well. But let's say with a computer, we can go beyond. We can know it is 99% most likely. But beyond, you can actually get information about who owns the copyright of that, etc. So that brings to the topic of us today, why we talk about OpenVINO. OpenVINO is the Open Visual Inference and Neural Network Optimization. It's a long word, again, let's break it down. But visual inference, or the inference in particular, is what Intel is focusing today. And then, so we're gonna talk about a little bit more about this right now. Like, how did it
Yeah,
start?
we could start at the very beginning. Actually, we realized her roots back into OpenCV. A lot of the founding members of OpenVINO were also the founding members of OpenCV. At the time, it was at an Intel research lab where OpenCV was founded, and then ITSEs started to lead it back in 2016, and then it went back to Intel. Intel acquired ITSEs, so a lot of the computer vision expertise came back into Intel. And so we grew our team, we grew an engineering team, and expanded to more than just computer vision library development, but also actually accelerating the solutions that go into production. So that's kind of where everything started.
Right. But what about the OpenVINO? What do we do with it usually?
Yeah,
Like,
so with the OpenVINO Toolkit, one of the main biggest barriers to entry that we were finding was it was very hard to take something into production, and it was so hard to find everything that you need to actually go from development to deployment. So the premise of OpenVINO is bringing everything together into one place. So whether you're in the building phase into developing your own pre-trained model, OpenVINO has an open model zoo, which is an open source, completely open source repositories of 200 plus pre-trained models with a variety of different tasks, whether you're doing computer vision, language, recommender systems, or machine translation. So you can see we have a variety of models from object detection, object recognition, re-identification models, semantic segmentations, instant segmentation, human pose estimation, image
that's a long list
processing.
already.
Yeah, it's a long list.
So
From
I think
CV
to,
to machine
yeah.
translation.
Perfect. And then to elaborate on that, remember our first topic, open source. These are all open source material that you can grab. And remember, I want to build an app. I want to think about Q&A. Indeed, we do support that. If you think about all this library, one of those can be one of the candidate for you to help you to solve that problem. Well, can you talk about the optimization for us? Like why we want to optimize it?
Yeah, one of the biggest things was we've seen, even if people were taking models and solutions into production at the time, they were very low performant or low accuracy. So a key thing is to optimize right before inferring. So that's why OpenVINO has a model optimizer, which essentially imports your pre-trained model and converts it into an intermediate representation format, and performs optimizations agnostic, so independent of the hardware that you're deploying into.
Mm-hmm.
And then the last step is deploying runtime, right? With that, OpenVINO has inference engine, which allows you to deploy it at scale, because it's a unified API that allows you to write your code in higher level programming languages like C, C++, or Python, whichever you're most comfortable with.
Mm-hmm. So are these all open source?
These are everything are open source. You could see Model Optimizer, Inference Engine on GitHub or Giti if you're in
All
China.
right. Well, hold on to that. I gotta show you more there.
Yeah.
But I think this is important to us. My role in Intel is the developer advocate evangelist. So I think for Intel, I always refer back to the topic. If you want to deploy an AI system to your clients, you always have to go through these kind of 1, 2, 3 step in some way. And with us, you can start with an idea. You go through the selecting your pre-trained model, building a prototype that's pre-optimized, and all this path all the way down to the deployment. You can think about the A to C path from the idea to deployment. With OpenVINO, we do take care of a lot of the heavy lifting because I built product in the past. Most people, I call it dropout, right? They either drop out from the first idea all the way down to the deployment because there's so many ways that you can fail. In particular, in optimization is often the problem I dealt with in the past building. I built augmented reality headset, so performance was like a very huge deal, right? You losing that latency, then you don't have the interactive part that you would need for the use case. So you can see we have all these pieces that help us along the journey. And again, read the fine print. I'm not gonna go through the entire fine print, but why I think this is great is it provided values to us, especially as a developer. As I think of a developer, you last thing you really wanted to do is to invest a lot of time in things that unnecessary because it's been done by others, and you just basically replicate someone's work without value. So this, I would say, OpenVINO help us a lot in terms of the speed. I love speed. I am a high performance person. I love things running in real time. And it also streamline a lot of the development because like you either build a team of hundreds of people to do this, or you can have a couple engineer very focused and then get this done and then prototype it. I think that changed the way we think about how we deploy AI today. And once you get it right, it runs on many different hardware. And so what kind of hardware do we run on, by the way?
Everything that you can think of, whether it's a CPU in your laptop, you can run OpenVINO there, or even a $45 neural compute stick too, which has a
Oh, you mean this
NVIDIA
thing?
CPU, just like that. Yeah.
You mean this thing?
So
I got two of
yes.
them. These are great, great. Oh, just I think a couple days ago, they had this running on a satellite. I'm not kidding. It was used for the satellite, so
That's
to send it to the
awesome.
space.
Yes, yes.
Uh, they use that to pre-process the images so that
Yeah.
they save a lot of bandwidth because like they can identify if that was cloud or this is actual image, and then that was a huge deal.
Mm,
And again,
yeah.
because high performance and low power, right? Great. So I think for most of you, especially developer, demo drives, right? You want to try it, right? Try before you buy it, kind of things. So we do provide a lot of demos, not just those kind of like sample code that show you very variable, but this is a full blown. Like you can try things that with the feature like human pose tracking, with everything, including benchmarking. So these are all the heavy lifting we find from the working with a lot of our clients, all the pain point, right? Everyone asks like to try something like that. And in particular, remember our app? I never want to forget my app. I want to build a cooking app today. We support something called a BERT in our pre-trained model. So BERT is a great one that designed for the NLP, natural language processing. What this can do is, if you take a paragraph, let's say a Wikipedia paragraph, and you ask the questions like, for example, this is an Intel paragraph about like the history, and ask like, when was Intel found? This BERT arrow this is the fine-tuning one, particularly called Squad, Stanford question and answering. So what this can do is it can highlight the sentence that actually, or the answer out from the paragraph that you look at. Why is it so good is, imagine now, I want to give a recipe to my applications and ask question about the recipe without ever seeing the recipe before. And with OpenVINO, I can build this in 5 minutes. And I did that in 10 minutes, trust me guys, this is so easy to use because we already provide you the entire source code from the model, pre-train, optimize, and all I have to do just there was to change the input. So in this case, I basically changed my input to be the recipe. So basically you can see on the screen, you have pad thai. I just upgrade the game, just make it harder. And then I can ask questions like, how much garlic do I need to the recipe? And with the demo code we provided,
4 tablespoons, 60 milliliters, Thai fish sauce.
I make a change to make it speak to me. Now I can have an app that can do a Q&A based on a recipe. And that's something that you can do very quickly today with OpenVINO and open source. Like none of that you need to worry about like how does it work? Because even for me, I'm reverse engineering some of that to make sure I can insert the applications use cases I need. I think the second one that I think is really cool, I say this is my factory post, is doing human post. Because remember cooking, I don't want to touch the screen. How to initialize, right? Maybe I can wave at it. So in OpenVINO, we also provide the source code and the model for tracking human posts. So now you can see I can start to put all these like amazing puzzles together, like all the AI puzzles, I call it puzzles, and I get it running in real time on pure laptop. So in this case, I'm running this on a CPU at over 30 FPS without any sort of like custom hardware. So, and lastly, I think we also have fun things like computational photography. So this is the one that I showcased in painting. So you can basically, I was taking a picture at Golden Gate Bridge and my friend just walked in front of me. I just don't want him in my photo. So you can now use some of these tools to take it out. And that enabled the community to build applications that also related to, let's say, super resolution or in painting or art applications. Well, I think I'll get back to Zoe because like Zoe, we have done a lot of like great things for the community, especially building these demos and all that. So you want to talk about what happened to the ecosystem right now?
Yeah, and actually before then, maybe we could pause for some questions from the audience, and you could submit your own question as well in the Q&A box. If you have any, we could definitely answer those. I know we've gone through a lot of material, so just let us know if you have any questions and just put it on the Q&A. We can answer them live now or at the end of the presentation.
Looks like we have a very shy group today. Nobody's got any questions for Raymond or Zoe.
No questions.
They've worked on like the coolest technologies that I've ever watched to talk on. I really want to hear all about those X-ray lasers, those emotion sensing headphones. I don't know.
All right. Well.
All right. First
we'll
question.
Keep going first.
We got a few questions in.
All right.
Got to get the crowd
Someone
warmed
read it to
up.
me. I cannot see on my screen yet.
Okay, first question. How is OpenVINO different from fast.ai?
I would say there's always people ask about the differentiators, right? I always feel like this is like a true open and end-to-end support. Oftentimes, I will say the Intel have that kind of ecosystem that enabling us from all the way from the just pure training all the way down to the hardware level. I think that's one of the advantage that using this tool is like we care about all the way down to the silicon. I think that's one thing that we do a little bit better. I'll say we try to be at least advancing our tool to be optimized fully. I think that's sort of the things that you see a lot of effort. We are a lot more focused on how it runs on the chips or on the hardware that we provide. I think that's one of the differentiator I always find.
Let's see. How about GAN applications in OpenVINO? Would
Right.
they work
So,
on OpenVINO?
If it's not, I think that's why I want to talk about the next step is we have a GitHub that actually we do pull requests on any new support. As of yesterday, for example, if it's not supported, I have to double check on that one. Because like I saw the community always use our tool to make it supportable. Because if you look at our step, we have the build optimize. These are the tool you use to basically convert any neural network or any sort of like system into our system. And why is it beautiful is yesterday I get the YOLO v4, which is not supported by us, but someone took the source code from OpenVINO, they look at every single step, and then they reverse engineer it and make it work. And I get a demo running on my stick just yesterday night. So my answer will be maybe not, but if not, we can make it happen because it's open source right now and we're open for collaborations.
All right, we have a couple more questions here. How is, I've worked on OpenCV before. How easy would I find OpenVINO?
It's actually supported natively in OpenCV right now. If you're using a lot of work from OpenCV, especially if you do the neural net, it's already pre-optimized with OpenVINO. If you go deeper into the source code, you can see a flag, say OpenVINO behind it. And even before that, Intel been actually helping OpenCV to optimize the work. You can see some of the instruction set. We actually help OpenCV to actually optimize together. I'll say together, not helping only, but like collaboratively.
Yeah, you
Right now,
could use OpenVINO. I would just add to that. You can use OpenVINO as the backend, inside OpenCV as a backend for your deep learning acceleration and deployment across any platform.
exactly. And if any questions, ask Zoe. Zoe, she knows all the tricks.
We have quite a bit of blogs too on OpenCV that we'll talk about later, so we can share some of that as well.
Wonderful. And where would you say is the best place to get started using or learning about OpenVINO? Can you share like the exact URL? Because I know that there are a lot of resources on your website.
Perfect. So you can share our official documentations, and I personally find there's a lot of great courses we can take to, like, cause actually I'm going into my future slide. I'll keep that for my later. Hold on. I'll tell you guys right after I go. We have it on our slides. It's coming up.
Okay, it's coming up, everyone. And
coming up. It's a great
we'll
question.
take one more question before we continue, and then we'll have another chance for questions after this one. So wow, we have a long question here. We have a pretty specific use case here. This audience member is looking for a smart IoT assistant for doing inventory in a retail store. So basically you walk around the store checking the number of items on shelves. There are several solutions that are available, but it's expensive. And I'd like to try to make something that's open source and uses cheap hardware like Raspberry Pi.
You came in the right place.
Using OpenVINO.
You came in the right place. It's almost like designed for this. So this actually works with Raspberry Pi. So I'm holding this right now. You can see it hopefully. The neural compute stick too. We officially support Raspberry Pi with this. It's in our documentation. And then we also have a source code for pedestrian tracking, people tracking that help you, especially in the retail settings. If you dig deeper into our demo code, we do have a retail setup one. So I can point you directly onto that, and so you may have something as well.
Yeah, I would say too, since you're looking to do some sort of inventory tracking in a retail store, one potential application could be using action recognition. Say if a staff member would put back a new product or take back a product, kind of like an Amazon Go store, you could use an action recognition pre-trained model for that kind of use case, and then some sort of object detection to classify specific products. Since we've worked on a lot of different use cases with retail stores as well from our side, we know a couple of things that you may have to think about is typically data sets would have to change so much because you may have a lot of different product SKUs, and you have to retrain your model every time you get a new product SKU or something, a new inventory, new good in your retail store. So that's one thing to think about. And then there's a lot of different requirements too in terms of how you're measuring, like the hand movement, how fast do you want it to be tracking, and kind of the frames per second that you'd be requiring your solution to have. So kind of coming back to what we were talking about, Ray, earlier, and to looking at your workload, the demand, utilization of your platform, and then the requirements. Are you optimizing for scale or for performance or for cost? It sounds like.
And then to further that, if you reach out to us, most likely one of our team have worked with retail related,
Yes.
and then we have some prior experience that can share back. I think that's the nice thing about why we talk about ecosystem today is we're pretty open to talk about like the learnings, right? So we're not like proprietary to the point that it's like, sorry guys, I'm not telling you all the things we learn. We open for the public. I think we should move on to the learning now. I think it's a good start. Thank you for all the questions
Let's
again.
do it. Yeah, and
again,
we can answer some of them at the end as well. So we have some time later as well.
Yep. And for the ecosystem, I think why we post this page is we want to thank you for all the partners, all the people who contribute, and all the people who work together on this project. Again, we're not alone. We actually work with a lot of company, individuals, and developers, and we're still learning and growing. Now let's go directly to learning, because a lot of us talk about how do I learn more about OpenVINO. We provide courses. I'll say if you have, let's say, want to start from scratch, we have tutorials, we have this instruction that you can go through to make sure that you have the sufficient background to know what we talk about during the journey and process. I know it's very like hard in the first time. I find that too, even with my computer science background. But once you get through this courses or the material, it becomes like a very natural thing to you. And we provide on different platforms, Coursera, Udacity, and even with different languages. So we have it in China, even in Japan or some sort. So these links will post it. You can Google us. Actually, definitely you can find the information that I talk about from them. And from learning, I think the best way to learn is from the source. Source tree we provide is the GitHub. So you want to talk about what's in the GitHub?
Yeah, a bit of some of the repositories that you could see here. OpenVINO, that's the main repo for where you can find the model optimizer and the inference engine that we talked about earlier. And then Open Model Zoo, which has a bunch of pre-trained models and our pre-optimized support for public models like BERT, as Ray mentioned earlier, and a couple of add-ons. So you can take a look at all of those here and potentially even contribute back to the community.
And you can see it's pretty active because we do actually commit our code there regularly. You can see basically our progress, like what we change and what's happening next, etc. Why it's important is we took a lot of issues or questions, Q&A from there. So you can see questions can ranging from small things like to big things, right? Can be like compilation error, can be setup problems. So we do take the response daily. So that's like what we show as a dedication to our community, as an open source community in particular. So we do have engineer behind all of that. And remember someone talk about, let's say I want to have a new support or something new for OpenVINO. Let's say it's never been done. We're very welcome to developers or people that in the industry to basically collaborate through maybe the GitHub or pull request. Why it's important is now all the learning, remember we talked about in the beginning, we want to solve a new problem. We can contribute back and then can be deployed to millions of machines. And then you can guarantee this will be supported throughout the time in the coming years. It's important, especially deploying applications. You want to make sure that 2 years later still there, not like one-off branch, because like we find that in particularly in open sources, people take their own individual effort and then just branch off completely, and then over time they die off, and then we want to make sure that we on the same boat together. So contest. Zoe, what do we do for contests? I think you did a lot of those crazy good work there. Can you tell us?
Yeah. We've done quite a bit, especially this year. We first, earlier in this year, we hosted a Hackster.io competition. This has been going on for quite a while. We started with an idea fun, and then we moved on to an engineering contest where you could win prize funds and as well as neurocompute stick twos. So
missed
we,
that,
we
guys.
gave away a lot of those during the competition. We've seen so many new use cases that we've never seen before from smaller team developers or some of the new developers that are coming into the industry. So that's a great way to kind of see all of the out of the box ideas and new use cases that we've never seen before. And then we're also participating in the Hacktoberfest with DigitalOcean, especially this year. We have a number of different challenges for you that you could take on from beginner to advanced. You could say optimize some of the operations that are available now, or create support for new operations, or even contribute to OMZ, the Open Model Zoo, for your own pre-trained models. So we're also participating there to kind of foster this community and help you contribute back to deep learning.
Perfect. I think this is exactly why we talk about open source community. We, instead of just like, here's your source code, no. We provide support, we provide competitions and new idea and contest. And then we even give out gift very generously. We give out the sticks and many things. Last not least, if you want to find out more about us, but not just from the marketing perspective, not from us, but from the community perspective. Again, people ask about open source with the OpenCV. Definitely, you will find OpenCV talk about OpenVINO. It's a lot open here again. And then you go to the official website, you can find out pages about how it works and then how the integration looks like. So in some way, I think it shows the dedications like that we're serious about these integrations. And the other thing I really love, I'll say, is Medium. If you have new idea, but this is not even monitored by us. This is naturally grown by the community. We can see posts made by many people weekly, daily, depends on the day, I'll say, because they're all new ideas done by the community. So if you have a problem about new things, very likely, I haven't seen it yet, but it most likely are searchable on Medium or other blog post platform. And they are so available in different languages. I find that you can have the Japanese, Chinese, Russian, different posts by individuals. Then days are great. I actually spend my weekend reading those. So next, I also want to thank some of our community members. Again, this is a Japanese post, blogger. He's so detailed about building the blog. I was like, this is as good as some of the official documentations, especially for the demo running. So if you have trouble running some demo, you can do a Google Translate on this page, and then you definitely get some extra support. I'll say extra because we have documentation, but sometimes there's a little gap, like or maybe missing a model, the name where it comes from. You can find more information from the community. All right, and I think Zoe and I talked quite a bit today about this, the journey. So you want to give a summary of what the journey means to us?
Yeah, let's just summarize from taking something into from prototype to production, you have to think about three things: build, optimize, deploy. And you have a number of different resources and open source resources available for you, from building your model using pre-trained models, building off of what the community has, to optimizing using the model optimizer and additional tools that's available for you. And then lastly, deploying at scale, being able to take the same application and deploy it across a variety of different target devices. So that's really a key important thing to realize, is that these are all available for you. We understand there's some drop-off rate kind of from each of these steps, but we hope that from all of these open source projects and tools that are available for you, we could help you along the way from going from prototyping to taking something into production at scale.
Perfect, exactly. And thanks for the summary. Again, this is a journey. Building product usually take 18 months to 24 months. And then dropout rate is the first month. Hopefully the first month you can stay together and then build a prototype that convince your boss that this is something you would like to work on. And I think the OpenVINO is one major step. So you don't need to buy custom hardware. You can just get it running immediately on your laptop most of the time. This is great. I think if you want to learn more, download. I think that's one of the best way to learn more about the tool, the community. Again, the reason we talked today is to thank you for the community, because a lot of the work that I see were not done only by Intel. I would say a majority of the blog and all that, especially the third-party ones, that's high quality, are done by individual like you that are interested in building the community together. I heavily recommend people have questions, go to GitHub. It centralized a lot of effort, so it's better than just putting on some random places. This will be tracked, followed, and then so you will be reading it. I'm pretty sure you will be reading them, right, Zoe?
Everyone, yes.
I will read some of that too, if especially on the new request. I definitely love to hear new ideas, and that's why I'm here today, right? Evangelizing and tell you the good news. And read that, 2 seconds minimum. It's recorded. That's from Intel.
How to cover our bases.
Yeah. All right. I gotta stop this screen.
Yeah. We could go to any questions. We could answer them live. We can talk more about your use cases. We could help you along the way where you stuck. Perhaps Ray and I could help you.
Screen. Hold on. All right.
Thank you so
I show
much,
my screen
Raymond.
already. It's already my work screen. It's okay. It's all good.
All right, we have a few questions to the audience members. Now's the time to ask them questions, so please type them in the questions box. First question, can OpenVINO be leveraged into self-driving cars?
OpenVINO doesn't work on reinforcement learning today, but we did have a partnership with AWS where we have OpenVINO pre-installed in one of the self-driving car dev kits that AWS has. I don't know, Ray, if you know this. It's called
I
the
haven't seen it yet.
Racer. Yeah, we launched it last year at AWS reInvent. And it's essentially just like a tiny little car that could help you deploy your self-driving models and try it out into like a small track. And OpenVINO is pre-installed there. So you could try that out if you're interested. But we still have quite a bit of work to do in terms of adding new operators to support the end-to-end reinforcement learning task.
And my answer is try it. It's open source. If you took it off, then you'll be famous. Trust me on this one.
Definitely.
This is gonna be, yeah, because you have a lot of opportunity to try new things here. And I think my advice for a lot of things like, do we support? I think we open so that if it's not, then if you make a request, it most likely will happen over the year to come.
Wonderful. Can beginners contribute to the OpenVINO GitHub repo? If yes, can you mention some issues for beginners who've just started learning machine learning?
So the answer is always a yes. I don't think anyone is called the expert. It's a field that's emerging, is blooming. Ideas always welcome. I will recommend, however, follow the guideline. We would not just take a broken code. There will be testing involved. There will be some back and forth with the engineers. I think there will be great learning for people who never tried it. So what we need to do is, I think Zoe can provide a link on the contributions and how we do the GitHub. We do have a
Yes.
video coming up on YouTube. We talk about how we contribute on the GitHub. And lastly is reach out to me. I can make it personal for you if it's something you want to do, right? I can do it like with you.
Yeah,
And so you have
definitely.
something to add?
Yes, I can. I'll send it over on the chat window as well. But as Ray mentioned, we prioritize having high quality tools into OpenVINO Toolkit. So we do quite a bit of validation and testing to make sure that performance doesn't break, or that and that your contributions actually enhance the other developers' experience with OpenVINO. But feel free to contribute. You could start with perhaps adding a new model of your own onto Open Model Zoo, or even doing perhaps some of the optimizations in existing operators that we support today, like batch to space, space to batch optimization, pad operations, split operations. So you could try it yourself, maybe optimize the performance and make it run really fast as possible, or even implement new operations, like for example reverse free operations. We don't currently have that yet. Potentially you could, if you need it for your use case and discover how to do it, you can contribute that kind of
Definitely contribute on the
operators.
model. Like even the new one I just tried yesterday
Yeah.
was done by a community member, and then I really encourage the person to put it on the GitHub. So that's how it will look like. Cool.
Fun, fun, fun. All right. A few more questions here. How does OpenVINO compare to Nvidia Jetson? Is there an advantage to using one over the other?
So quick answer, not very specific, is I use both in my history of my development. I think what I like, on top of my personal experience, what I like about OpenVINO, it's just it runs on so many different way. So I can run it on my CPU, on the Intel iGPU, I can run it on my stick, on the Raspberry Pi. So I'm a lot more flexible when it comes to deploying, and performance is pretty good. Just to be honest, like I don't see the huge issue for what I do during that time. Because with the stick, I can do a lot of things on the Raspberry Pi, and then a lot less hot as well. The Raspberry Pi running on this is not as power intensive. So that's my personal experience. There's advantage on different world. I'm not gonna do an A/B comparison. You can do a table yourself. There'll be some here and there, but definitely the flexibility is one thing I really enjoy with the OpenVINO. And then so you may have something to add too.
Yeah, and I think one thing to add onto that is, since we are using a runtime that is a common API across all those platforms, you could say take your same application that you deploy on the Neural Compute Stick 2 plus a Raspberry Pi and scale that up to say a Xeon or a Core using the same application with just tweaking a specific flag, like myriad plugin versus CPU plugin. So you have that kind of flexibility without having to dive too into, say, FPGA programming, like very like low-level programming languages.
Right.
Great. Can the stick run on an AMD-based PC?
Well, there's a discussion on that at one point. I don't think there's official support that I can think about, but so you want to add a little bit? Official, I say official. Doesn't mean it does not support.
No, we don't have official AMD plugin, but since it's open, OpenVINO is open source. So if you are developing or have some ways to develop an AMD plugin, we're happy to take those contributions as well.
Right. So we basically welcome hack it.
Yeah.
It's yours.
Yes.
I've seen hacker.
Yeah.
Actually, to be honest, I've seen people hack it on the Jetson to run OpenVINO.
Yes. Yes.
They actually run the stick on top of that. It was like, okay, thank you. I was like, never seen that. That's why I'm here
Yeah.
today, talk about this. This is like, people do a lot of amazing, crazy hack that I was like, unimaginable, and something that I won't even see in Intel myself. Like,
Yeah. Yeah, I think the key thing is that as Intel, we are really familiar with our hardware and can future-proof OpenVINO for future next-generation platforms as well. Say we have upcoming hardware that would have certain intrinsics, we could build that out onto OpenVINO within Intel platforms. But if it's another third-party platform, we may not have the right expertise to know their intrinsics. So creating a plugin would be such a big, heavy lift from our side as well.
Great.
Cool opportunity for community members out there. All right. Suppose I build an app using OpenVINO. Can I integrate it with Alexa?
Oh, Alexa.
Alexa, your Alexa just spoke.
Depends on what you do. I think always talk about the first step, 1, 2, 3. What's the workload? What's the requirement, right? We have to talk about those two. Like because we have a model server, we can actually use that as the backend, and then you can have Alexa talking to a separate backend for, I don't know, depending on the use case. Could be, depends, really depends, right? Like what would you like to do with it? If you're using it for NLP, I think is a great fit. And then there's many opportunity there. You can further optimize what Alexa can do there. And again, it's open. You try it. If you did it, let me know. I would love to put it on our forum or just make some sort of recognition for you. And that's my job, right? If you have something cool, I would love to help you to broadcast it.
Yeah, highly recommend trying out OpenVINO model server. We had quite a bit of enhancements and improvements in that one. It's essentially a serving service, microservice within OpenVINO that allows you to serve up your models into client devices or via containers or bare metal hosts. So you'll have that flexibility in deploying and scaling up your model.
When will OpenVINO support Movidius VPUs in Ubuntu 20.04? I'm aware of CPU preview support.
It supports now since 2021.1 release, which was a couple of weeks ago. We now officially support Ubuntu 20.4. So check out the latest version of OpenVINO and try it out for yourself.
All right. I think this is the last question. We still got some time. So to the audience members who are tuning in right now, if you have any final questions, I would recommend putting them in the chat now. So maybe the last question, maybe not. How good is OpenVINO compared to TensorRT for model optimization?
I think we should refer them to the benchmark. I think they can take a look at the documentations. We heavily document how well each of the model runs. And oftentimes I would say the answer is you have to look at specific models. They're not like 1 off, 10 times faster, 5 times. Case by case, let's say if you're doing YOLO, we have a very specific benchmark on the model we use, and then if the accuracy, right? We use different precisions, right? So those are a huge factor on the performance, and then we document that very well, and then you should be able to follow on the numbers. And yeah, and it also depends on the CPU, on the setup you have to, so you have to double check on those.
Yeah, and just comparing TensorRT and OpenVINO, OpenVINO has a 2-step optimization process. The model optimizer, right, the step 2 of your journey. That's optimizations that is hardware agnostic, so it is independent of hardware, and it does things like layer fusion. If say you have a transformer block like BERT, you could fuse certain layers like matmul and bias add into one layer, so that helps you with your performance. And then on top of that, we have hardware specific optimizations. Say you know your target device is a CPU. It's typically CPUs have AVX 512 instruction sets. We could take advantage of that as well as kind of a compounding effect of both software and hardware specific optimizations.
And also we have a called unfair advantage is you can mix and match those hardware. So we have a multi, we have tactual. So you can actually in parallel running all of them together. I think that's why the benchmarking is very complex. I don't say a number. I say on use case and on your mix and match of hardware.
Yes, definitely.
Cool. Anything I need to know if I were to use OpenVINO for a commercial use case?
So
No,
you can answer this.
so OpenVINO, there are two distributions of OpenVINO, the Intel distribution of OpenVINO Toolkit, which is licensed under Intel's end user license agreement, but it's free, it's modifiable. And then the open source code is available under Apache 2.0. So you could follow the directions. It's a typical open source license. You could modify it in any way that you want. You could take it, build on top of it, and you can use it in commercial use cases. Definitely highly recommend you to use it in commercial use cases, because that's the point, helping you to take something into production and seeing more real world deployments of deep learning as fast as possible.
All right, I believe that was our last question. We have a few more people who probably joined late and wanted to ask about the generative adversarial network again. Does OpenVINO support it? If you
I
don't mind
can look it
repeating.
up right now. That's the thing with the different question. I'm not kidding. Like, I don't know everything about the life, but let's see what we have here. We have a demo. Yep, you can Google it. You will see people have a demo with that. It's a GitHub repository done by someone 6 months ago. That's my answer to you immediately. That's the nice thing about the community. I don't know the whole Wikipedia in my head, but they all Google searchable. So usually the keyword is OpenVINO with the model name. We always pop up something on the first or second. If it's not there, then put a pull request there. We'll make it happen, and then we'll be trackable. But it's there somewhere in the community.
Yeah,
So someone
and
tried it.
I believe the demo you just shown, the image and painting, I
Yeah,
think
it was
it's
part of
using
that.
GAN networks.
It was part of
Yeah,
that. Yeah.
yes. So that's probably what the question sprouted from.
I think so too. Yes. I think I have to look up. Actually, I have a slide on the reference. I put a paper out what we implement. So if you go to the documentation in painting, we do actually refer back to all the community effort. So
Yes,
we actually
yeah.
refer back to the. I can read the name of that paper now if I have it somewhere. But definitely, we have references to those work. Actually, I can
Yeah,
get.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, you could check out OpenVINO, Open Model Zoo. For each of the pre-optimized models that we open source, you could check
Right.
out the research paper that we built off of, and as well as the license. Most of them, all of them are open source, but just different
Exactly.
open source licenses.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Zoe and Raymond. That was super fun. We learned so much today. Any final words of wisdom for the audience before we sign off?
Open source is great. Contribute to the community. We'd love to learn from you. Let's build deep learning together.
Yeah, and then my answer will be I built products before. Don't go on a journey alone. It's the worst thing you can do to your company because you run into a lot of risk, a lot of issues that you don't know how to solve, and then you will end up burning your budget. That's not good. And my
Yes.
other wisdom is no one knows everything, even I. So always think, I very humbly say, if you have anything new, I'd love to learn, hear more, and dig deeper. And Googling things and all that is your friends here. That's why the open source community room. No one should know everything in this world, and I think that collaboration is what we need to make this better.
Wonderful. Thank you so much again, Zoe and Raymond. And thank you everyone for tuning in. We hope to see you again soon. Happy coding, everyone, and happy Hacktoberfest. Bye.
Enjoy.